The princess stood in the ruins and declared the war not over. Towers that had gleamed with polished metal now lay twisted, their glass windows shattered into jagged shards. Streets that had been filled with laughter, merchants, and children's games were silent, littered with debris and the remnants of lives interrupted. In the midst of this devastation, Princess Alara stood, her boots sinking slightly into the ash that coated the ground. Her cloak fluttered in the harsh wind, tattered and scorched, yet she remained upright, her posture rigid, her eyes focused on the ruins before her. The palace where she had been born, the center of governance, and the heart of Urindor's culture, was reduced to a skeleton of what it had once been. Smoke rose from its once grand halls. Fires burned in pockets across the city. The air was thick with dust and the scent of scorched metal. Yet, for all the destruction, Alara's expression was not one of despair. She did not kneel, nor did she weep. Instead, she scanned the horizon as if looking for something, or perhaps someone. Her advisors and guards had gathered behind her, each one of them a survivor, but none dared speak. They all knew what she had to say before she said it. She turned to face them, the determination in her gaze sharper than any blade. "The war is not over," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. It was not a whisper, not a plea. It was a command, a declaration. Some of the soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. They had survived the Zitrian attacks, but the cost had been unimaginable. Families lost, homes destroyed, entire cities erased. Yet Alara's words carried weight, not just because she was a princess, but because she had shown them that humans could endure. She had trained alongside them in combat drills, strategy sessions, and the harsh realities of survival. She had never asked them to follow her blindly. She had earned their respect through action. A few of the older advisors shook their heads, fear evident in their expressions. "Your Highness," one of them began, his voice trembling, "we must consider surrender. The Zitrians will not stop. They are too powerful, and we have no fleets left, no weapons, no support." Alara's eyes did not waver. She stepped forward, her boots crunching on the ash-laden ground. "Urindor is not finished," she replied firmly. "We may have lost battles, but we have not lost our spirit. As long as one of us stands, as long as we have the courage to fight, we are not defeated." Her words were not empty rhetoric. In her mind, she saw the faces of the survivors, children hiding under collapsed walls, engineers scavenging parts to make weapons, soldiers sharpening their blades and preparing for another skirmish. Each one represented hope, and in that hope she drew strength. As the sun struggled to pierce through the thick clouds of smoke, Alara moved through the city with a small group of her closest advisors. They walked past streets where buildings leaned at impossible angles, past overturned vehicles, past fires that burned unchecked. Every step revealed more of the devastation, but also glimpses of resilience. A group of children huddled together in the ruins of a school, sharing what little food they had scavenged. A mechanic worked tirelessly to repair a broken hovercar, hoping it might serve as a transport for supplies or a weapon against the invaders. Alara nodded to each of them, silently acknowledging their courage. In the center of the ruined city she found it, the remnants of the palace's grand hall, partially collapsed but still recognizable. Among the wreckage, a faint glow caught her eye. Kneeling down, she moved debris aside to reveal a small, crystalline artifact, pulsing softly with energy. It was unlike anything she had seen before, intricate and alien in design. The crystal seemed alive, resonating with a rhythm that matched the rapid beating of her heart. "Your Highness," one of her guards whispered, "what is it?" Alara carefully picked up the artifact, feeling its warmth seep into her hands. "I don't know yet," she admitted, "but I think it may hold power we can use." She examined it closely. The crystal was etched with patterns that reminded her of star maps, but the energy it emitted felt almost conscious, aware of her presence. It was dangerous, she could feel it, but she also sensed potential. If understood and controlled, it could be the key to turning the war around. The princess did not have much time to ponder. Distant rumbling echoed across the horizon, the unmistakable sound of Zitrian patrols approaching. She quickly signaled her advisors to organize the survivors. Using the palace ruins as a command center, they began setting up makeshift defenses. Engineers repurposed broken machinery into barricades, while soldiers coordinated patrols and scouts. Alara herself joined in, assisting wherever she could, demonstrating that she would not command from a place of safety alone. As night fell, the city became a patchwork of flickering fires and shadows. The Zitrians attacked in small squads, attempting to probe human defenses. Each skirmish was tense, a test of ingenuity versus alien might. Humans used traps, improvised weapons, and guerrilla tactics. They struck swiftly and retreated, disappearing into the ruined streets before the Zitrians could counterattack effectively. Alara moved among them, offering guidance, encouragement, and leadership. She watched a squad of survivors use a string of explosives to collapse a narrow alley, trapping a group of Zitrians. The humans cheered quietly, their morale bolstered by even small victories. Hours later, as the immediate threat subsided, Alara gathered her inner circle in the partially intact palace chamber. She placed the glowing crystal in the center of the table, its light casting eerie shadows across their faces. "This artifact," she began, "is Zitrian in origin. I do not yet understand its full potential, but I sense that it can amplify energy in ways we can use. If we learn to control it, it may give us the advantage we need." Commander Kale, her childhood friend and the leader of her remaining soldiers, frowned. "And if we cannot control it," he asked, "the last thing we need is another weapon we cannot manage." Alara met his gaze evenly. "Then we will learn. Humans are nothing if not adaptable. We have survived worse than this. We have risen from ashes before, and we will do so again. But we cannot wait for the Zitrians to destroy us completely. We must act, even if the path is uncertain." Her words hung in the air, a mixture of determination and risk. Outside, the wind howled through the ruins, carrying with it the distant echoes of the alien ships. Yet for the first time since the attack, there was a glimmer of hope. The survivors rallied, their spirits lifted by Alara's unwavering resolve. Over the next few days, Alara focused on preparing her people. She trained civilians in basic combat skills, taught engineers how to modify equipment for defense, and encouraged soldiers to think creatively rather than rely solely on brute force. The artifact remained at the center of her attention, and she spent hours studying it, attempting to understand its functions. One evening, as she held the crystal, it pulsed brightly, almost responding to her presence. A wave of warmth passed through her, accompanied by a strange clarity of thought. She saw visions, not of the past but of possibilities. Cities rebuilt, fleets of ships maneuvering with precision, humans standing victorious against impossible odds. It was not a prophecy, she realized, but a glimpse of potential, and it strengthened her conviction that the war was far from over. In the ruined streets, the humans began to show signs of life beyond mere survival. Markets sprang up in pockets of the city, children laughed cautiously as they played among the ruins, and soldiers moved with purpose rather than despair. The Zitrians, confident in their dominance, did not yet understand the fire they had awakened in humanity. Alara walked through the streets one morning, her cloak brushing the ash. She passed a group of young engineers who had rigged a small hover vehicle with repurposed energy weapons. "You think it will work?" she asked them. The tallest of the engineers grinned. "It will if we aim carefully, Your Highness. Humans always find a way." Alara smiled faintly, pride swelling in her chest. This was why she fought, why she refused to surrender. Humanity was not just flesh and bone. It was courage, intelligence, and the unbreakable will to survive. As the sun rose higher, the faint outline of Zitrian ships appeared on the horizon. Scouts reported their approach. Alara raised her hand, signaling for her people to prepare. She did not fear them, not truly. Fear had no place in the heart of someone who believed in the resilience of her species. She held the crystal once more, feeling it vibrate against her palm. She did not know what it would demand of her, or what cost it would impose, but she understood one truth clearly. The war had not ended, and it would not end until humanity chose to fight. Standing amidst the ruins of Urindor with smoke curling around her and survivors watching her every move, Princess Alara lifted her voice so that it could carry across the broken city. The war is not over. We are alive, we are strong, and we will fight. For Urindor. For humanity, stand with me and we will show the universe that we are not defeated. Her words carried on the wind, a promise and a warning. Somewhere in the shadows, Zitrian scouts paused, perhaps sensing the strength in her declaration. But Alara did not waver. She had seen the worst of destruction, and she had seen the spark of human ingenuity and courage. She would protect that spark, and she would fan it into a flame that could not be extinguished. The city may have been in ruins, but its spirit was unbroken. And in that moment, Princess Alara knew that as long as she and her people remained, humanity would never surrender. The mornings on Urindor had changed. They no longer brought calm and warmth. Instead, they carried a sharp edge, the constant threat of Zitrian reconnaissance and patrols cutting across the sky. Yet, in the ruined city, a spark had been lit, and it grew with each passing day. Princess Alara moved through the streets with purpose, her cloak flowing behind her, a symbol of unbroken determination. She was no longer just a princess in title. She had become a leader, a strategist, and a symbol of resistance. Every step she took carried the weight of hope for the survivors. The humans had begun to adapt. Civilians learned to fight with whatever they could find: pipes, shards of metal, modified energy tools. Engineers repurposed abandoned vehicles into mobile artillery, while soldiers trained in tactics that relied on speed, cunning, and teamwork rather than raw strength. The ruins of the city had become a proving ground. What the Zitrians saw as a destroyed planet was, in truth, a human fortress in the making. Alara gathered her inner council in the remains of a large civic building that had survived the initial bombardment. Commander Kale stood beside her, arms crossed, watching a holographic map of the city displayed from a salvaged console. The glow from the hologram cast flickering shadows across their faces. "We need to strike first," Kale said. "If we stay on the defensive, the Zitrians will pick us apart one squad at a time." Alara nodded, her eyes flicking to the hologram. "Agreed," she replied. "We will hit their supply lines. Small teams, precise strikes. We can't win with force alone, but we can win with strategy and ingenuity. Humans are good at that. We adapt when others cannot." The plan was simple in words, complicated in execution. Teams would move through the ruined streets, striking Zitrian patrols and supply convoys, and then vanish before reinforcements could arrive. It relied on human intelligence, improvisation, and the element of surprise. Alara herself would lead one of the teams. She had trained in hand-to-hand combat and tactical maneuvers, and she believed that her presence among the soldiers would inspire them more than any speech ever could. The first mission began at dusk. The team slipped through the shadows, moving silently past burned-out vehicles and collapsed buildings. Alara's pulse raced, not from fear but from anticipation. Every step was calculated. Every corner might hide a Zitrian scout, every ruined alley a trap. But the humans were ready. They had learned to read the battlefield, to sense the flow of movement, to anticipate danger. They reached a Zitrian supply station, a cluster of storage units guarded by a few alien sentries. The humans crouched behind debris, observing. Alara signaled to her team. 2 squads moved to flank the station while she and Kale approached the front. A quick series of hand signals and the attack began. Explosives detonated, Alarms blared and chaos erupted. Zitrian guards attempted to respond, but the humans struck with precision, disabling energy shields and capturing critical supplies. Within minutes, the mission was complete. Alara's team retreated to the ruins, supplies in hand, and survivors cheered quietly as they returned. The Zitrians would not expect such audacity. It was a small victory, but victories, no matter the size, mattered. They reminded the survivors that the war was far from over and that humans could fight back. In the days that followed, Alara focused on training and coordination. She held strategy sessions with engineers and commanders, discussing ways to repurpose the Zitrians' own technology against them. They experimented with energy weapons scavenged from the battlefield, modifying them to create traps and defensive measures. Humans discovered that by combining old technology with their ingenuity, they could build weapons and defenses far beyond what the Zitrians anticipated. Alara also devoted time to understanding the artifact she had discovered. It pulsed with energy, resonating in ways that were both familiar and alien. She experimented cautiously, learning that it could amplify energy fields, generate defensive shields, and even disrupt Zitrian technology when used correctly. But the crystal demanded focus and stamina. Each use left her physically drained, and her mind often teetered on the edge of exhaustion. Yet she persevered, driven by a sense of responsibility to her people. One evening, as Alara studied the crystal, Commander Kale approached. "You've been at it for hours," he said quietly. "You cannot bear this burden alone. The artifact is powerful, yes, but you must rest or it could consume you." Alara looked up, her eyes glowing faintly in the crystal's light. "I cannot rest," she replied. "Every moment we delay, the Zitrians strengthen. I have to learn its power to understand it. We need every advantage we can get." Kale sighed but nodded. He knew she was right. Humans had survived countless threats because they refused to give up. They adapted, they learned, and they fought with courage that no alien force could predict. Alara embodied that spirit, and the survivors followed her example. The following weeks were a blur of missions and preparation. Humans struck at Zitrian patrols, sabotaged supply lines, and reclaimed portions of the city. Each success emboldened them, each defeat taught them new lessons. The artifact became a symbol of hope, its energy a reminder that humanity was capable of harnessing forces beyond their understanding. Then came the intelligence that changed everything. Scouts reported unusual Zitrian activity, a fleet assembling at a nearby starport, weapons being loaded onto massive ships capable of interplanetary destruction. The aliens were not merely defending their conquest, they were planning a strike that could annihilate Urindor completely and threaten nearby systems. Alara gathered her council. "They plan to destroy everything," she said, voice firm. "If we do not act, we will be wiped out. But we can use their overconfidence against them. Humans are clever. We are adaptable. We have survived against impossible odds before, and we can do it again." The council debated tactics late into the night. Some feared the risks were too high, but Alara's determination never wavered. She outlined a plan to strike the Zitrian fleet before it could complete its preparations. Using the ruins as a base, they would deploy small, agile teams to sabotage key ships and disrupt their weapon systems. The artifact would play a crucial role, amplifying energy fields to create diversions and shields. The first strike was daring. Alara led a team to the outskirts of the starport, navigating through ruined infrastructure and hidden passages. They planted charges on supply lines and disabled communication arrays. The humans moved with precision, every action calculated, every step a demonstration of their ingenuity. When the charges detonated, chaos spread across the Zitrian fleet. Ships fired at each other in confusion, and the humans slipped away into the shadows. Back in the city, survivors celebrated quietly. Supplies captured, ships sabotaged, lives saved. Each mission strengthened the bond between Alara and her people. They no longer saw her as merely a princess. They saw her as a leader who fought alongside them, who shared their risks, who believed in them when despair threatened to take hold. Despite the victories, Alara knew the war was far from over. The Zitrians were intelligent and ruthless. They would adapt, counterattack, and seek vengeance. She also understood the personal toll the artifact exacted. Each use drained her energy, leaving her body aching and her mind strained. But she pressed on, for humanity depended on her resolve as much as it depended on her strategy. During one mission, she witnessed the ingenuity of humans in action. A small team of survivors had rigged a broken hovercar with energy pulses scavenged from Zitrian tech. They used it to lure a patrol into a trap, disabling the Zitrians without a single human casualty. Alara smiled faintly. This was what she had always believed. Humans could fight smarter, not just harder. Creativity, courage, and teamwork were their greatest weapons. In the following weeks, the artifact revealed more of its potential. Alara learned to create temporary energy shields, allowing small teams to hold strategic positions against larger Zitrian forces. She discovered that it could disrupt alien communications, giving humans the element of surprise in ambushes. But each use left her weaker, forcing her to balance the artifact's power with her own physical limits. Through it all, Alara never stopped moving among her people. She inspected fortifications, trained new recruits, and even joined combat patrols. Her presence inspired courage. Her determination reinforced the belief that humans could survive against any odds. The survivors began to look at the ruins not as a symbol of defeat, but as a foundation for rebuilding, a proving ground where human ingenuity could shine. Then came the report from scouts that chilled even the most hardened soldiers. The Zitrians had identified Alara as a significant threat. They were sending their deadliest general, a figure known for ruthlessness and cunning, to hunt her down personally. The general had a reputation for anticipating human tactics, for crushing resistance with cold precision. The news spread through the city like a dark wind, yet Alara did not falter. She gathered her council one evening, her eyes reflecting the glow of the artifact. "They believe they can stop us with one general," she said. "They do not understand humanity. We fight not just with weapons, but with ingenuity, courage, and determination. The arrival of this general does not scare us. It proves that we are dangerous. Let us show them just how dangerous humanity can be." Her words were met with murmurs of agreement. The fear was still there, but it was tempered by hope. The humans had survived impossible odds, adapted faster than their enemies expected, and turned every disadvantage into an advantage. Alara's leadership had transformed survivors into warriors, civilians into fighters, and despair into determination. The night before the anticipated arrival of the Zitrian general, Alara walked through the ruins alone. The city was quiet, the fires burning low, the air heavy with tension. She held the artifact in her hands, feeling its energy pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. It was a strange comfort, a reminder that even in darkness power and potential existed. She closed her eyes briefly, centering herself. Tomorrow, the war would escalate. The stakes would rise, and the survival of her people would be tested as never before. But Alara was ready. Humans were ready. And as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, casting long shadows across the ruined streets, she raised her head, feeling the weight of responsibility and the spark of possibility. The war was far from over, but humanity had shown its first sparks of resistance. Under Princess Alara's leadership, the survivors of Urindor were learning to fight, to adapt, and to reclaim their world. The Zitrians had underestimated them, and that mistake would soon become a cost they could not afford. In the distance, the silhouettes of alien scouts appeared against the rising sun. Alara did not flinch. She adjusted her cloak, lifted the artifact, and prepared her people. Tomorrow, humans would strike again. And this time, they would show the universe that Erendor was not finished, and humanity was far from defeated. The morning air carried an uneasy tension. Even among the survivors of Erendor, there was a quiet sense that the next wave of battle would test them as never before. Princess Alara walked through the city streets, the glow of the rising sun casting long shadows across the ruined buildings. The wind carried the scent of scorched metal and ash, and every step she took reminded her of the losses they had suffered. Yet, she did not falter. Her eyes, sharp and determined, scanned the horizon as if searching for the invisible threads of fate itself. Inside the partially rebuilt palace command center, her council gathered. Maps of the surrounding area, satellite images, and reports from scouts were spread across tables. Commander Kale stood beside her, his expression tense. The Zitrians were moving faster than anticipated. They were consolidating forces, repairing ships, and preparing a weapon unlike any Alara had ever seen. The scouts' descriptions were alarming. Massive energy cannons, capable of targeting entire cities from orbit, and fleets ready to destroy anyone who resisted. "We cannot wait for them to strike," Kale said. "If we don't act, Erendor will be obliterated and the neighboring systems will fall soon after. We must take the fight to them." Alara nodded, her fingers brushing over the glowing artifact she carried everywhere. "I've seen what humans can do when we adapt," she said softly. "We've survived worse than this. But this is different. Their weapon could erase everything we've fought for. We need more than courage, we need strategy and precision." She turned to her council, her eyes meeting each of theirs in turn. "We will divide our forces. Small teams will strike at supply lines, sabotage fleets, and gather intelligence. We will use the artifact to protect us and to amplify our attacks. Every action will count, and every person has a role. Humans are clever, and we will show the Zitrians that intelligence and ingenuity can match any force." The council members exchanged nods, reassured by her confidence. Alara's presence had become more than a symbol of leadership. It was a beacon of hope. The survivors no longer waited for orders. They acted with purpose, inspired by her courage and determination. Over the next several days, the humans executed a series of daring strikes. Teams moved through abandoned tunnels, across broken streets, and into areas once controlled by the Zitrians. Every mission was precise, relying on speed, surprise, and adaptability. Civilians had become scouts, engineers had become weapons designers, and soldiers had learned to anticipate the enemy's moves. The humans moved like a living network, each part connected, each action feeding into the larger strategy. Alara herself led several missions, always at the front, always in the thick of danger. She had become a master of improvisation, blending knowledge of the city with the artifact's abilities. On one mission, she and her team used the crystal to create a temporary energy shield, allowing them to approach a Zitrian supply depot undetected. Explosives were planted, energy conduits disabled, and within minutes the depot erupted in controlled chaos. The Zitrians were caught off guard, and the humans retreated before reinforcements could arrive. The victories were celebrated quietly, in whispered conversations and small gestures of pride. The humans were learning to fight smarter, to use their environment, and to exploit the Zitrians' assumptions. Alara watched her people grow stronger with each passing day. Yet, beneath her calm exterior, a storm brewed. The artifact, powerful as it was, demanded more than her body could endure. Each use left her drained, her mind teetering on the edge of exhaustion. She hid her fatigue from her people, fearing that any sign of weakness might shake their morale. One evening, after a particularly grueling mission, Alara sat alone in the command center, the artifact glowing faintly in her hands. Commander Kale entered, concern written across his face. "You've been pushing yourself too hard," he said. You cannot control that thing forever. It will consume you if you let it. Alara looked up, her eyes tired but unwavering. I cannot stop, she replied. Every moment we wait, they grow stronger. This artifact gives us a chance, and I will not waste it. Humanity has survived impossible odds, Kale. We adapt, we fight, and we endure. I will endure too. Kale shook his head, frustration and fear mingling in his expression. You are not just a fighter, you are a leader. If you fall, the people will lose hope. You must let others help you. We can share the burden, but you have to let us. Alara paused, considering his words. Leadership was a lonely road, but she understood the truth in Kale's warning. The artifact was a tool, but it was not a substitute for human unity. She nodded slowly. You're right, she admitted. We will share the burden, but we cannot hesitate. The Zitrians will not wait for us to recover. The next day brought news that shook even the most experienced scouts. The Zitrians had deployed a weapon capable of planetary destruction, their energy cannon nearly operational. The scale of the threat was immense, and the humans had to act quickly. Alara convened her council to plan a coordinated strike against the weapon before it could be used. We will split into 3 groups, Alara instructed, pointing at the holographic map. One team will sabotage their supply lines, one team will attack the weapon directly, and I will lead a strike team to disrupt their command network. Timing is critical. If we fail, the consequences will be catastrophic. The plan was audacious, bordering on reckless, but Alara knew that humans thrived in such circumstances. Their ingenuity, courage, and adaptability often turned the tide when the odds seemed impossible. Remember, she said, her voice carrying across the room, we are human. We endure, we learn, and we fight. Today, we show the Zitrians that no weapon, no army, and no threat can break the spirit of humanity. As the teams prepared, Alara felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on her shoulders. The artifact pulsed in her hands, sensing her resolve. She could feel its energy resonate with her own, amplifying her focus and determination. Yet she knew each use drained her body and mind. Every pulse was a risk, but also a necessary force against the Zitrians. The strike began under the cover of darkness. Small teams moved silently through the city and the surrounding terrain, their steps coordinated, their objectives clear. Alara led her team to the Zitrians' command hub, navigating through ruined structures and hidden tunnels. The artifact glowed faintly, providing subtle illumination and amplifying her ability to sense energy fields around them. Inside the command hub, alarms blared as the humans struck with precision. The Zitrians were taken by surprise, their communications disrupted, their defenses weakened. Alara and her team moved quickly, planting charges and disabling key systems. The artifact pulsed, creating temporary shields and energy pulses that confused the alien sentries. Each action was deliberate, each movement calculated to minimize risk while maximizing impact. Meanwhile, the other human teams executed their missions with equal precision. Supply lines were destroyed, communication arrays sabotaged, and the planetary weapon temporarily disabled. The Zitrians, confident in their superiority, were forced to react to a threat they had not anticipated. Humans had turned their chaos into advantage, demonstrating creativity and intelligence that the Zitrians could not predict. When the missions concluded, Alara and her team returned to the city, exhausted but victorious. The artifact's energy had left her physically drained, her mind teetering on the edge of collapse, but she pushed forward, knowing that the fight was far from over. The humans celebrated quietly, their morale bolstered by another successful strike. In the following days, Alara focused on rebuilding and fortifying the city. She trained new recruits, coordinated defenses, and continued to study the artifact, seeking ways to maximize its potential without destroying herself. The humans were learning not just to survive, but to thrive in the face of overwhelming odds. Each victory, no matter how small, strengthened their resolve and confidence. However, the strain of leadership and the artifact began to take its toll. Alara felt exhaustion creeping into her body, her movements slower, her mind clouded. Yet she refused to show weakness. She continued to lead, inspire, and fight, knowing that her people drew strength from her example. One evening, as she walked through the streets of the city, she witnessed a small group of survivors improvising a defense using broken vehicles and scavenged technology. They worked together seamlessly, their ingenuity and courage evident in every action. Alara smiled faintly. This was why she fought. This was why she refused to surrender. Humans were more than soldiers. They were thinkers, builders, and survivors. Then came the message from scouts. The Zitrian general, the one personally responsible for Erendor's destruction, was approaching with a massive fleet. The humans had been noticed, and the war was about to escalate further. The news sent ripples of tension through the city, but Alara did not falter. She called her council together once more. "They believe one general can break us," she said. "They do not understand humanity. We fight with courage, intelligence, and adaptability. We will not be intimidated. We will prepare, we will adapt, and we will endure." The council members nodded, their fear tempered by hope. Alara's leadership had transformed them from survivors into warriors, from victims into fighters. The humans were ready for the next phase of the war, and they knew that under Alara's guidance, they had a chance. That night, Alara stood alone on a high terrace overlooking the ruins of the city. The artifact pulsed faintly in her hands, its energy resonating with her determination. The wind whispered through the broken streets, carrying the echoes of human resilience. She closed her eyes, centering herself. Tomorrow, the Zitrians would arrive, and the war would test every skill, every ounce of courage, and every bit of ingenuity humanity possessed. But Princess Alara was ready. Humans were ready. And as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, she lifted her head, feeling the weight of responsibility and the spark of possibility. The war was far from over, but humanity had proven that it could adapt, endure, and fight back. And under her leadership, the survivors of Erendor would show the universe that humans were not to be underestimated. The coming battle would be the greatest test yet. The Zitrians were intelligent, ruthless, and powerful, but humans had something they could never predict: ingenuity, courage, and the unbreakable will to survive. Alara knew that victory would not come easily, but she also knew that humanity had already proven itself capable of extraordinary feats. In the quiet before the storm, the survivors of Erendor prepared. Engineers checked weapons, soldiers practiced maneuvers, and civilians contributed in every way they could. They were not just survivors, they were participants in a fight for their planet, their species, and their future. Alara felt a surge of pride and determination. The war was far from over, but humans had already demonstrated what they could achieve. And when the Zitrians arrived, they would find that Erendor was no longer a broken planet. It was a crucible of human resilience, intelligence, and courage. Princess Alara raised her hand to the sky, the artifact pulsing in response. She whispered to herself, a vow to the people, the city, and humanity itself: "We endure, we fight, we adapt, and we will prevail." The sky over Erendor was filled with movement, dark shapes cutting through the clouds as Zitrian warships descended upon the planet. The survivors looked up, some with fear, others with grim determination. Princess Alara stood on the highest terrace of the partially rebuilt palace, the artifact glowing faintly in her hands. She could feel its energy thrumming in rhythm with her heartbeat, resonating with her will. The moment had come, the final test. The Zitrians were here, and humanity's future rested on the courage, intelligence, and ingenuity of every human who remained. Alara turned to Commander Kale and the council. "This is it," she said, her voice steady and firm. We have trained for this, prepared for this, and survived every challenge they have thrown at us. Today, we show the universe that humans do not give up. We fight, we endure, we prevail. Soldiers checked weapons, engineers monitored energy fields, and civilians ensured supplies and defenses were ready. The city was alive with movement, a hive of activity, each person contributing to the defense. Humans were no longer merely survivors. They were a force, small but precise, clever and adaptable. The Zitrians may have had power and numbers, but humans had something the aliens could never predict: creativity, unity, and the will to survive against impossible odds. The first wave of Zitrian ships entered the atmosphere and chaos erupted. Energy weapons fired, targeting strategic positions across the city. Explosions shook buildings, sending clouds of ash and debris into the air. But the humans were prepared. Using improvised shields, energy barriers from the artifact, and clever traps in the streets, they minimized casualties and redirected Zitrian attacks. Small teams struck at isolated patrols, disabling them before they could regroup. Every movement was coordinated, every action amplified by human ingenuity. Alara moved with her team through the city streets, leading from the front as always. The artifact pulsed in her hands, creating protective fields and emitting bursts of energy that disrupted Zitrian sensors and weapons. Civilians guided her team through hidden paths, engineers provided makeshift weapons, and soldiers executed maneuvers with precision. The humans were a single, living system, moving and reacting as one. The Zitrians, confident in their superiority, underestimated the humans' adaptability. They expected resistance, but they had not anticipated the level of coordination, creativity, and ingenuity displayed by the survivors. Every trap, every improvised weapon, every tactical maneuver reflected human intelligence and adaptability. Alara led her team toward a critical target, the central control hub for the Zitrian fleet's weapons. If they could disable it, they could prevent the planetary cannon from firing. The approach was treacherous, surrounded by ruins and patrolled by elite Zitrian soldiers. Alara signaled to her team, and they moved silently, using shadows and debris to conceal their movements. The artifact glowed brighter as they approached, sensing the concentration and determination in Alara's mind. Inside the control hub, the humans struck with precision. Explosives were planted on critical systems, and energy pulses from the artifact disrupted Zitrian sensors and defenses. Chaos spread among the aliens as they tried to respond to the unexpected assault. Alara and her team moved swiftly, disabling the command systems and preventing the weapon from activating. The artifact pulsed with immense power, creating a protective shield that allowed the humans to escape unharmed. Meanwhile, other human teams attacked supply lines, communication arrays, and smaller enemy units. Each strike was coordinated to create maximum disruption, forcing the Zitrians to react rather than control the battle. The humans exploited every weakness, adapted to every challenge, and turned even minor victories into strategic advantages. The battle escalated further when the Zitrian general, a towering figure of calculated brutality, arrived with his personal fleet. He landed on the planet near the city's edge, radiating authority and menace. The humans watched cautiously, but Alara did not falter. She understood that this confrontation would be a test of human ingenuity, courage, and adaptability against raw power and experience. Alara gathered a small elite team and approached the general's position. The artifact pulsed in her hands, amplifying her energy and focus. She felt the strain on her body, the drain on her mind, but she refused to yield. Humans had faced worse odds and they had survived. She would not falter now. The confrontation began in a narrow corridor, the walls of the ruined city casting long shadows. The Zitrian general advanced with calculated steps, his weapons charged. Alara met him with a combination of speed, strategy, and the artifact's energy. Every attack, every movement was precise. She used the environment to her advantage, leading the general through traps and ambushes, turning his strength against him. The battle tested every skill, every instinct, every ounce of human adaptability. Alara's team executed maneuvers with flawless coordination, creating openings for critical strikes. The artifact pulsed in response, protecting them, amplifying energy and disrupting the general's technology. Humans fought with courage, intelligence, and unity, refusing to yield even as the odds seemed insurmountable. At the critical moment, Alara used the artifact to create a massive energy field, destabilizing the Zitrian general's weapons and defenses. The pulse sent him staggering, his strategy disrupted. Alara seized the opportunity, moving with agility and precision to deliver the final strike, not with brute force, but by exploiting the general's overconfidence and tactical mistakes. The Zitrian general fell, defeated by human ingenuity and courage. The victory was decisive, but the battle continued. Zitrian forces attempted to regroup and retaliate, but humans had learned, adapted, and turned the battlefield into a maze of traps, energy barriers, and tactical advantages. Each movement of the humans was calculated, exploiting weaknesses and using creativity to maximize impact. The Zitrians were powerful, but they were rigid, predictable, and unprepared for the unpredictable adaptability of human strategy. As the battle raged, Alara felt the artifact's final pulse of energy surge through her. It amplified her strength, focus, and speed to extraordinary levels, allowing her to coordinate defenses, direct attacks, and protect civilians simultaneously. The energy drained her completely, leaving her nearly unconscious, but it ensured that the humans held their ground and the Zitrians were decisively defeated. When the dust settled, the city was scarred but intact. The surviving humans gathered in the central square, exhausted but victorious. Alara stood among them, her cloak torn, her body weary, but her spirit unbroken. She had led them through impossible odds, and together they had demonstrated the power of human courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Alara lifted her voice so that everyone could hear, across the ruins, across the battered city, and even beyond. "The war is not over," she declared, her voice steady and resolute. "But neither are we. Humanity will rise, we will rebuild, we will survive, and we will show the universe that we are not to be underestimated." Her words were more than a declaration, they were a promise. The survivors cheered, their voices echoing across the city. The humans had not only survived, they had demonstrated their ingenuity, courage, and unbreakable will. The Zitrians had underestimated them, and that miscalculation had cost them dearly. In the following days, Alara led efforts to rebuild the city, coordinate defenses, and prepare for any future threats. Humans began to explore their capabilities, using the artifact cautiously to enhance their knowledge and technology. Engineers developed new energy systems, soldiers trained in advanced tactics, and civilians contributed in every way possible. The planet, though scarred, became a symbol of human resilience and adaptability. The Zitrians retreated, defeated but not destroyed. They would regroup, repair, and perhaps return, but the humans of Urindor had proven that they were not helpless. They had survived against impossible odds, adapted faster than their enemies anticipated, and turned every disadvantage into an advantage. Under Alara's leadership, humanity had demonstrated that courage, intelligence, and creativity could overcome even the most powerful adversaries. As the sun rose over the ruins, casting light on the city, Alara stood once more on the highest terrace of the palace. She looked over her people, her survivors, her fighters, her engineers, and her friends. They had endured unimaginable hardships, but they were alive, strong, and ready to face whatever came next. Alara held the artifact in her hands one last time, feeling its energy pulsing gently. She had mastered its power enough to use it responsibly, to enhance human capability without succumbing to its drain. It was a tool, a reminder of human potential and a symbol of their victory. With a deep breath, she raised her voice to the skies. We endure, we fight, we adapt, and we will prevail. This is only the beginning. Humanity will rise and we will shape our own destiny. Her words were carried by the wind across the city, into the stars, and into the hearts of everyone who heard them. Humanity had survived and humanity would thrive. They were no longer mere survivors. They were a force to be reckoned with. The survivors of Urendor began to rebuild their homes, their cities, and their society. The artifact, now understood and respected, became a symbol of human resilience and intelligence. Alara continued to lead, her presence inspiring courage and determination. Humans explored the ruins, adapted technology, and prepared to defend their world and their species against any future threats. The Zitrians may return, but humanity would be ready. They had learned to fight smarter, to adapt, and to survive against impossible odds. Alara had proven that leadership, courage, and intelligence could turn even the direst circumstances into victory. Urendor, once a ruined planet, became a testament to the strength of the human spirit. The cities would rise again, stronger and wiser. The survivors would teach their children the lessons of courage, ingenuity, and unity. And Princess Alara, standing among them, would forever be remembered as the leader who refused to surrender, who inspired her people to rise, and who showed the universe the true power of humanity. The war had tested them, challenged them, and pushed them to the edge, but humanity had endured. And as the stars shone above Urendor, the survivors looked to the future with hope, courage, and the unshakable belief that they could overcome any challenge. The universe had witnessed the resilience of humans, and it would never forget it. And Princess Alara, standing tall amidst the rebuilt city, whispered to herself, a quiet promise to the people and to the generations to come: we endure, we fight, we adapt, and we will prevail. The princess stood in the ruins and declared the war not over.